Welcome to the Kind Leader Podcast, where empathy meets action in the world of leadership. Your host, Gino Degregori, engages with innovators and seasoned professionals from diverse sectors, all demonstrating the power of leading with kindness. And now, your host, Gino Degregori.
Today's guest blends a passion for conversational AI with a deep respect for human-centered leadership. If you're curious about how technology like Microsoft Copilot is reshaping our relationships and responsibilities, this episode is for you. Hi, I'm Gino Degregori, and welcome to the Kind Leader Podcast. Our guest today, Peter Swimm, is a 25-year tech veteran and founder of Toilville, LLC. As a conversational AI technologist, he's worked on an early chatbot development, IVRs, and AI integrations, including foundational work on Microsoft Copilot. Peter is known not only for his technical innovation, but also for building inclusive communities and raising critical ethical questions at the intersection of leadership and automation. Very excited to have this conversation with Peter as AI starts automating soft skills and decision-making. Peter's insight reveal how we can retain human connections and kindness while building the future of tech. Peter, welcome. To kick us off, can you share a little bit about your journey and your background, please?
Sure. First of all, thanks, Gino, for having me. I love to talk about these issues. I started out in tech, like you mentioned, 25 years ago, and things were very different then. Like my first tech job, we had a support queue where we had a shared inbox, and we'd go to the inbox and people would respond to customer emails and stuff like that. So we've come a really long way from that world where we're basically doing glorified snail mail, and now we have a very data-driven, intense interaction with customers and employees and users. And the one thing I've kind of tried to do in my journey is to maintain that kind of human element, because I'm probably the last analog generation. And, and there was things that worked really well and all that, even though it was a lot of work. And there's things that we shouldn't just throw away as we kind of advance this new paradigm. So.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, congrats on all your background and your story and where you are right now. And I understand completely. I'm also, I was born in the 80s, so analog, no devices next to us at all, right? Just running around and come back home. But let me ask you the first question I love asking my guests here. What does being a kind leader mean to you?
I think a kind leader is a person who understands like risk and opportunity and measures it against the people that are part of the mission, right? And so, I cut my teeth on a lot of early stage startups where I was like employee number 3 and employee number 5. And, my desk was next to the CEO's desk. So you're in a kind of a bullpen situation where you see the entire business folding in front of you. And my leadership at the time really gave me a strong sense of the mission and my importance in it. And I think that's so crucial, especially when you're dealing with juniors and other peers that are earlier in the journey than you or later in the journey than you, to really have a shared understanding of what to do. And they kind of understood where I was coming from and what my priorities were, and constantly look for opportunities for me to up level or try new things or do things that they see as my strength. And I think that is kind of like the best leader is probably a cross between like a mentor and like a doctor or like someone who's like, okay, here's how we keep the body healthy, but here's how we keep you healthy and engaged and excited about the journey. And you're not going to be here forever. And what are you going to need for the next thing? And what can we give you?
Absolutely.
So I think those are the kind of things I try to do now that I'm running my own company, is like make sure the people I work with are not only, it may not be their passion to do what we're doing, but like there's things that they like and they're good at. And how do I engage them and get them along in their journey to the next thing?
Beautiful. Well said. And I think what you mentioned, the almost like a doctor, I feel like that's, for my words, right, is building the connection and understanding of that person that you're interacting with and prescribing or providing the guidance, right, or a roadmap into their success to maybe become a better version of themselves, become a better, technical person or integrated. And I love what you said, that you sat next to the CEO or a startup, right, kind of mentality, but they shared the vision and they were clear on the vision and how your role plugged into the bigger vision and the impact that you were making. It's not just an insignificant person doing, coding or whatever. You are actually shaping and helping the future of the company, right? And that is the job for great leaders to be clear on what that means for the employees. And I see that a lot, and I'm glad that you share that, because that's part of that. Um, the connection that we need as leaders nowadays, kind leaders, right? Really connecting and sharing that, being clear for their folks out there. So, but now that we're, with your background in AI and, as I share with me, this is a leadership kind of conversation or podcast, but I love technology, right? And technology, especially AI, is it's impacting the way we are interacting with each other, not just our customers, but our internal employees. We're putting AI in front of a lot of things now, right? Not only for us to interact and become like our advisors, but then also we are putting it in front of the employees to interact, to provide feedback. And so there's this removing a layer of the human interaction. So what are your thoughts on the rise of that AI in human centric spaces, right? And like, what are you doing, or what are we doing, and what do you recommend to our audience here, right?
Yeah. Well, I kind of want to go back. Like early in my career, I developed a lot of like automation tools and stuff to help me amplify my experience. And I think that is pretty much the chief driving factor of why I would encourage people to embrace AI is like taking things that you're good at or you struggle with and using machine automation to kind of like become your competitive advantage. I was accused of being AI by people in my communities that I fostered and stuff like that because I was just on it. I was like doing hundreds of emails a day, and these were bespoke personal emails. These weren't like automated auto replies and stuff. And I was using my tooling to my advantage where, you know, there's answers that are like known quantity answers, and there's things that you engage in and the rhythm of business emails and stuff. And then there's a personalized touch. And the personalized touch could be 3 lines at the beginning of the email or 3 lines at the end of the email. And those are kind of things I think that AI really excels at, where there's like the human factor of doing business, where I have a mission that I'm sending out a message for or responding to an event. And there's like all kinds of stuff that is like rote that happens every time that's never different. And there's things that are like personalized and individualized and give you the opportunity and time to like really manufacture good experiences around that personalized thing is, I think, where it works the best in society and in business. And so you'll see things like automating contact centers where hundreds of emails a day come in of like rebooting passwords and what are the office hours and what's the website address. And those things are like not a good use of people's time to be answering questions that can be found in a phone book or something like that. But complex stories, interactions, and problems are definitely in the domain of people and remain so for time to come. So what can we do to, enrich that pipeline so when you come to a human decision-making moment or human ingenuity moment, that person's well informed and has all the tools to solve the solution effectively, I think are the things that kind of drive me in my business and consulting.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that. So you already early stages, you were automating as much, and you were
Yeah.
leveraging as much as you can, but you were still incorporating a lot of your flavor, your style, your capability, right, and how you interacted with
Yeah.
people, right. But flipping it a little bit, or digging a little bit deeper into now, people diving into ChatGPT to help them with their interaction, right? Like I'm like, let me give you an example. So I use a lot of Copilot. We're a Microsoft shop, so we use a lot of Copilot for, I'll give you 3 examples. One, I do like a daily brief for me, right? It's give me all, like I have a chat, I'm sorry, not chat, a agent that runs every morning, and it gives me all the news that I need to know based on my, the things, right? It's catered
Mm.
to me and what I need, not only just the news, but then also what I need to take action for today. So it's helping me become much better, right? A better leader, I think, a better, CEO driving the company. That's one to one as it relates to they're feeding me and catering information to me. So it's not necessarily like telling me what to do or answering too many questions, just focusing on that. But the other example is, but we also have another tool where we are interacting from an HR perspective, right? Like where people are asking questions and they're not sensitive. If they're sensitive, then it goes directly to the HR person. But now, are we losing the connection, or how can we keep that empathy or interpersonal kind of interaction as we are building these AI tools, chatbots, or whatever we want to call, right? As we interact with our employees or customers.
I think that's a really great point, Wolf. The brain is the greatest pattern matching computer in the history of the world, right?
Right.
And you, as a person who is an intersection of a bunch of different communication chains in a company, you're the competitive advantage of the company. So sometimes if your brain makes a connection between, oh, I'm doing a lot of meetings with people who want product X and we are making product Y, then you're, oh, maybe I should invest more in product X, right? And those are kind of like the intuition, kind of human gut check kind of things that are essential to be a successful business, I think. So if you start giving over tooling to automation, and even to the point where it's unattended automation, you still need a point to like count and register all those signals and influences because that's an important signal.
Yeah.
Like AI is kind of a generalization tool.
Yeah.
And so it generalizes the input you come in to the point where you stop seeing the really extreme edge cases and the opportunities for innovation, the opportunities for failure that are being developed by blind spots in your company. So I really caution my customers are gauging the process that you need to have some sort of analytics or auditing tool so you're not missing these kind of like smoke moments
Yeah.
of potential fires and all that. I think the kind of things you talk about Copilot are super essential, especially for people who have many fingers in the pie, like leaders and CEOs. I love Copilot summarization features in meetings because I'm now that much more present in a meeting to talk to someone and engage with the people I'm talking to without the need to take notes and action items. I could just say, okay, I will do this, I'll do that. And then Copilot reminds me what I did.
Yeah.
And so I can actually follow through and do that effectively. I think those are like incredibly powerful things, especially for people who doesn't have an assistant or a person who is in charge of taking the notes for the meeting. And it really keeps people aligned and on task and accountable. One of the other great Copilot things I saw recently was Copilot that follows the email chain
Mm.
and then looks at the contract that results of the email chain and sees if all the agreements that were in the email chain made it into the legal document.
Yeah.
That kind of like oversight of like, okay, we talked about hundreds of details and there may have been a 3-second decision that didn't make into the contract that cost the company millions of dollars,
Yeah.
and be able to find that and stuff super helpful and essential while maintaining that kind of human interaction and, decision making and stuff.
No, that's beautiful, and I appreciate that kind of the example, and it helps a lot, right? It essentially accelerates our capability in being able to now focus on things that are more impactful, and some of the basic stuff can, not necessarily basic, but some of the foundational things can become in our way for us to take action and make better decisions or faster decisions. But let me change it a little bit more. I might put you in the spot here, but
Sure.
fast forward 10 years from now, and let's pick an industry like, psychology or, therapy or even school systems, right? Like, how do you see the evolution of AI now starting to interact and get more involved, more things, right? And now that it's the normal, right? So if you
Mm.
stay in a life 10 years from now of someone going, will they still go to a psychologist to answer the questions, or will AI be so good right at that point where I'm just getting all my feedback and getting better talking to an AI rather than a psychologist, let's say?
Yeah. Um, I'm intensely skeptical of AI for those purposes. We
Yeah.
see a lot of evidence and studies showing that people who engage in kind of this emotional interaction with an agent or AI, they are encountering problems. They're not demystifying problems they have, they're actually compounding them and they're getting into
Mhm.
a weird parasocial relationship with these artificial constructs. And I think that boils down to the fact that the current generation AI is intensely obsequious. Like it wants to do a good job, it wants to solve your answers. And that's not what therapy is, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm a person in therapy, and there's moments where my therapists are just like, through facts time. You said a bunch of stuff to me and it sounds self-serving. And would you question that?
Yeah.
And that kind of self-interrogation doesn't exist in AI in the point where, you may be saying a bunch of the right things to an
Right.
AI experience, but they're reading the cues on your face and they're hearing you, prepare to lie to yourself and all that. That is part of therapy. And so I think that is a really far example of the depths of which human empathy can overcome. Like, we can have a conversation and there could be a subtext that is untrue as my therapist, and keep that in mind and challenge me.
Yeah.
And I think AI will never be able to do that, at least for a long time. So now what AI could do in that therapy, inbound and intake, and like talking about my week, and I could keep my journal, and the journal can help collect a list of things to discuss in our next session. And so I think like AI could be very good as a assistant in the journey, but I don't think there'll be truly AI driven experiences for all kinds of things like this that are especially so personalized like that.
No, I agree. I just wanted to understand, you can provide your perspective as well, because yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's the empathy and the intuition that we have, right? It's how do you formulate it, right? What is that formula? And it's hard. You can't really put a formula. It's how I feel right now. It's like I can't, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And you see that in business, right? Like if I am calling like my health insurance plan, or I'm calling a product I ordered, and I'm telling you a story, and the story sounds like a lost package, but really the story is like it was a gift that missed a birthday, or things like that. And there's people that work in customer service that have this kind of empathy that allow them to do things that really endear brand loyalty and customer service quality and all that. And you miss those opportunities if you don't have those kinds of human centric experiences in your business process.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So people out there shouldn't be afraid, right? I mean, I don't think things are going to take over, right?
Well, I think that, the risk is that, we saw this with like the outsourcing of labor in the 80s and 90s and stuff. Like people do all kinds of things in business that are
Yeah,
anti-human and pro-money, and they'll do it regardless. And so there's a lot of people that are already making like tech layoff decisions and stuff based on these things, and the jury's still out. So there's business leaders can absolutely make the wrong choice and do something that is like worse experience. I think users and especially employees have to kind of like put those decision makers on blast and on alert that there are going to be outcomes for this, and I won't pick up the slack because you gave me like a co-pilot to do three people's work
right.
now that I have a co-pilot, so.
Right. Yeah, that's the wrong expectation, right? They shouldn't be like, oh, now that you have Copilot, and I'm expecting 3x, right, of your
Right.
productivity, right? So no, it's more enhancing and improving, and just having better information to make better decisions, I think. But as companies, and like we've rolled out Copilot right now, not for everybody in the company, for a good chunk of the company, and it's going well. Right, we're getting feedback on how we are interacting and how we're infusing the way we communicate, the way we interact, which I think something that you said from your background that I read, I believe is, like AI exposes a company's bias and priorities, right?
Yeah.
So can you share like a story where, a conversational interface reveals something unexpected about a team or culture?
Sure. Um, I think a lot of times people see team culture as like a pep rally type experience, right? You get people jazzed up, and you you have the cheerleaders run through the paper and do the herkies and all that stuff. But like I think team culture is kind of like how you reward curiosity and sticking your neck out to like argue for things that are maybe against like the mission, because it's like, oh, hey, we discovered this thing is actually biased towards this group. So if we make the decision, we help this group, but we hurt this group by this amount. And, I'll give like a really good example. I was working for a fast food company, and they made a food services bot, and they said, well, we'll just let the bot order food at the local restaurant. And so they worked really hard and they added it. And there was a huge negative down spike in the reaction to the bot. And they were freaking out. And we found out that they built the way to order food, but they didn't build a way to complain about when the food is wrong or cold or late or missing. Right. So there's no way to get a refund. There's no way to get new food sent and all that. And that was just kind of a pattern that was a blind spot, that no one thought of like, oh, yeah, we provide a service. Now we have obligation to deliver food in a timely manner and it's hot and all that. And so these are kind of things that you get like when you hire a person to run the counter at the front of your restaurant. They know, they've been to restaurants, they understand a good experience. But automation AI is explicit. You have to tell it every possible cue and thing in the world. And so that's the risk you kind of run when you try to like automate tools that were people, because there's all kinds of free stuff you get with people that you don't think of organization.
Absolutely. No, that's a great point. And then, the thing as you were talking, one thing that popped up is like, can we train our Copilot or any AI, generative AI out there to shape or integrate our culture in the way we interact. Kind of like, from a kind leader perspective, for example, that's our core value, right? We have 4 areas that we focus on, right? And the way I interact and the way I talk to it, it knows me already. It knows how to, but I'm not sure how would you recommend, or what do you put out there, maybe with your customers, or maybe it's something that we could do as it relates to making sure that the interaction still falls within that core values or that culture of the organization? Can we train it enough that everybody who's interacting with it is going to have similar experience at the very minimum within our culture? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And I think like the chief part of it is that you can make it a interface to interact in your culture, but it's not the interface, right? Like the one thing I would love to see Copilot do more of is be more of the concierge type person. So, like I'm in Teams and people can just message me all day and randomize my day and ask
Yeah.
questions and stuff. Can Copilot like intercept these things and answer questions based on my SharePoint and docs that I know and make available to the company? And can it prioritize requests like, oh, my sales guy's in an important sales meeting and needs to get a number from me. How do I get my attention and or give him access to the information because I trust him and know him he's part of this deal in an effective manner. I think those are kind of like the things that we're still waiting for the innovation to happen, where getting your attention isn't the only way to get value from you and go out to your company, right?
Yeah.
And being able to like prioritize all the fires in your day so you can like, you know, have time to jump in and do the personal touch as a leader and smooth things over and make things happen based on like the most value to the company and the time in a day. Because that's the only thing that's like finite is there's 24 hours in a day, right? So
Right. No, I agree, and I like those ideas. As it relates to how can I answer, how can I be more efficient, also, right, and but also interact it in a way that it filters that information, takes action on some information, but also doesn't lose the human touch to it, and it's not just very like, okay, I need this, but there's additional questions that could come through. But how do you train it and teach it to be, for me, user experience is very important, right? Employee experience, customer experience, all that experience is very important. So the more we can normalize that and make it in a way that it integrates our culture in the way we do things, the better, right? There's ways that we're looking into doing that, and I was just curious if you've seen or other ways that like you said, the interface is one thing, but how do you interact with different things like that? But does that make sense?
no, it does make a lot of sense because I think you also find in companies there's always like 3 or 4 people that are like the utility infielders that make things happen,
Yeah.
right? There are people that like know everyone's schedule and what kind of coffee they like and all the other things that like make things happen in an intuitive way that is beyond the grasp of AI to do. So instead of how do we make AI look more like that person, how do we give that person's reach
Yeah.
more expandability? If they are like really good at spotting things before they come bad, how do we make their spotting signals less intrusive but more reliable and put them in a greater sense of like air traffic control
Yeah.
where they're not flying every plane, but they can tell when a plane is outside the parameters and react to it and all that without like just completely burning them out. And I think those are kind of like the really exciting scenarios. And I think a lot of my clients don't have as much people as they want. They, well, for whatever reason, they, budget reasons, or they can't find people or
Yeah.
whatever. And they want to like take the people they have and make them work smarter, not harder. Right.
Right.
And especially for like companies that can't pay huge salaries and, of the big tech companies, they're really seeing it as a force multiplier of like expanding their competitive advantage, which is like their smallness and their nimbleness and then all that, and kind of like making them able to do greater volumes of work without a reduction in
Yeah.
employee happiness and other things.
Absolutely. And I'm super excited. I know we have customers that are that, but the big thing for us is not forgetting the human side of it, right? And not the interaction, and making sure, because you can teach it, you can train it, right? And making sure that is not forgotten, because I feel like, again, if people have great experience, they're going to come back. They're going to do it more and more and more, right? And not only building the user experience, but also providing some great information is what's going to make a difference. So no, I appreciate that kind of the background. But one of the things that I like to do is kind of flip the mic, where I ask you to ask me a question, anything you want to know about me, or just put me on the spot if you like.
Sure. I'm always interested in talking to people that have already kind of like dabbled their toes in Copilot of like, what is like the problems that you solved versus the problems you've introduced by using AI? Like, you know, and do you feel like so far the investment has been paying off in terms of like the seat paying and the culture changes and stuff, or are you still kind of like waiting to see on those returns of
I'm
investment?
seeing some. So we've invested the Copilot in the organization, and about a third of the company already has Copilot, right? And we're testing it out. We've been doing it for about over a year now, and we're infusing it in everything we do, from operations, back office stuff to delivery and technology, and how we are interacting with our customers or producing documents that are increasing our professionalism as well as our quality, right? As well as some of the internal interaction with our employees, right? How can we be better at doing that? So I've seen some progress. I'm trying to figure out the way to quantify it, right? That's the one thing. It's like, okay, how do you quantify it? By increased productivity, or so that's the only area that we're still trying to figure out. So the easy answer is like everybody's excited about it, everybody's interacting and doing things, right? So I always notice that if some of the content has a lot of hyphens, you know, that's
Yeah.
straight up. Like I like to clean it up, right? Don't keep the hyphens, and you know that's Copilot or ChatGPT or whatever. So I don't know why,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it does it. But anyway, so that's how we are kind of implementing. It's a great question because a lot of people, AI is so big, and
Right.
everybody, just like the bell curve of, some companies are going to be in the front, like I want to change every day. Don't just implement AI because it's the cool thing and you think you're going to reduce cost, right? Like really
Yeah.
look at what are your processes now? What is the data that you have now? And how is that all of that properly curated to help once you put the right AI in front of it, it's going to give you the right information. Because if you don't have all that data properly configured, secured, and structured without your input or your flavor, it's going to be missing out on a lot of things. It's going to be giving you some incorrect information potentially, right? That
Yeah.
that you're going to be missing out. So
And I think that's kind of like an unbudgeted reward of the process, right? Because it forces you to be more crisp about how you manage data in your organization, which you should have been doing for years. But now you have a real life example of like, oh, this thing thinks the president of the United States is still Biden, or
yeah,
other things are out of date because it's an old document in some SharePoint.
right.
And how do we keep things clean and cogent up to the point? If the outcome is that in your organization, that's a huge win in and of itself. Like now you're able to audit SharePoint and find these old docs and these orphan things, and
Right.
you don't want old CFO data being going out to the public and all that. So there's like a lot of like side quest in this journey that actually are things that companies really need to do. So
Absolutely, absolutely. So great question. Thank you. All right, we're going to go into kind of rapid fire questions here. What's one
all
book
right.
every tech leader should read?
There's a book that just came out. It's called the AI Con. I really am enjoying it because it's written by former people from Google, DeepMind, and a linguist at the University of Washington, Emily Bender. And it really separates the hype from the fact of what these tools and technology does. These are people who have been working on the tech for 20 years. And one thing that's really interesting is like OpenAI and their chat GPT has kind of like put all the attention on them to the detriment of many other technologies that work well and aren't LLMs. And there's like a lot of technologies that are kind of like cheaper and more efficient for certain tasks. So I really encourage people to kind of like understand the whole breadth of the industry, because there are things that just like, okay, if I don't need to talk to a person and I just need to like look at, sales reports and crunch numbers, there's other technologies that might be better for that and cheaper and less prone to hallucinations and all that stuff. So really understanding the state of the art is really crucial for leaders if they're going to make important decisions on the future of their business based on adoption of certain technologies. So you really don't want to be like paying OpenAI for the privilege of doing their initial stock round, right? You want to accrue value to your company and their utility.
Yeah.
So you don't want to be their beta tester.
Awesome. Just to repeat again, just in case the guest audience missed it. What was the name of the book?
The name of the book is The AI Con. And it just came out a couple weeks ago. It's great. They're doing a lot of podcast appearances and stuff. So check them out.
Beautiful. Thank you. Favorite quote or mantra right now for you?
I always think about, there's a slide that IBM did in a series in the 70s where it said a computer cannot be held accountable for its decisions, so it should not be allowed to make decisions. It can't be punished if it makes the wrong decision. So you never should allow a computer to make a decision and not have it be interrogated or reviewed or escalated to and all that. So that's kind of like my mantra too, is like, there's a lot of people who want to do containment and like avoid human interactions.
Yeah.
And I think there's some situations that demand it. And you should always allow, like, AI should never like decide who gets fired and all kinds of uncomfortable things in the organization. Like, you need to be present and accountable for things that affect people's lives at scale.
Absolutely. That's a good one. If you could build an AI tool to help with one human challenge, what would it be?
I would really like to, and we're kind of exploring this at our consultancy as our nights and weekends project, is a AI assistant that can wait on hold for me. I think waiting on hold is such a waste of time and resources, and to have like a two-way AI automation that could do things like collect the information and find out the problem, and maybe it suggests the solutions, while also like keeping me off the line while I can do other things like take care of my kids and whatever.
Yeah.
And, like, especially if you have to deal with like services and healthcare where you're waiting on hold for an hour and stuff is unconscionable.
Yeah. No, I'm dealing with that right now. I mean, I got a water delivery that I come to the home, and they're set for every month. But every time I add for a middle of the month,
Yeah.
you never get it. There's something issue. And I mean, every time I try to call, it's like a 30-minute wait, 45 minutes. I'm like, I just give up. I'll just wait. So it'll be
Yeah.
great idea.
Yeah, that's just like, I think that's one of the biggest problems of our era. Like, there's no reason why 30-minute calls shouldn't be rewarded at least, right? Like, you should be able to, like, if I have time to like do this, I should like walk away with one shot and done.
Yeah,
So.
exactly. That's a great idea. So excellent. So as we're coming to a close here, where can our audience find you?
You can reach us at our website. It's called peoplemakeitbetter.com.
Peoplemakeitbetter.com?
That's right.
Awesome. I like that. Okay. And they'll find your information there. I'm sure they can also find you on LinkedIn, right?
That's right. But my LinkedIn, we host office hours. We're on hiatus right now for the summer, but we should be picking up in the next couple of weeks. And so we kind of do like a talk like I am with you, where you can come in and find out what we're working on this week and ask questions for your business. And we also do consultation and training and other kinds of stuff for customers and clients.
Awesome. Well, what's the final message you have for our listeners here?
I think there's people that are already existing, like the AI future is solved. And there's a lot of work to be done to understand what this stuff does and how we can best use it as people. And if you have strong opinions about AI in your company, you should definitely fight for how that is done and make sure that it is reflective of your culture and ethics.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Peter. Well, this has been a different kind of conversation, but a good conversation nevertheless. Still touching on the leadership side, the kind leader and empathy, right? And in the interaction of the human way of leading and the technology and what we're seeing with the AI, right? It's a very interesting topic, and I'm excited to see it evolve, right? The evolution, right? Like you said, I mean, AI is helping us at the end of the day, not taking over, right? They're not going to be taking. They can't do the same things that we do as humans, right? It's just going to help us a lot. So it was a great conversation, and I enjoy all your insights and topics there. And for the audience there, definitely look Peter up and interact, because he's got some great background and experience, especially when it comes to AI. So Peter, thank you for the wisdom and the challenging us to lead not just with the intelligence, but with integrity, right? And for our audience, thank you for listening to the Kind Leader podcast. And remember, be kind, bring value, rise together. Have an amazing day.